we are continuing with our projects. So we have three parts, and in the first part we spoke about God. In the second part we spoke about the memory and memories of peoples. Though our third part is dedicated to children. And Anna Shelley from Yaroslavl. I think that Anna is still a teacher, a school teacher. That is true. That's very true. That's our. And I also invite Svetlana Shmelyov here. And it's not accidental that we bear the same name. Svetlana Shmelyov is my wife. But this coincidence of family names would not have happened if it were not for school, because we met at the seminar of the school years ago. All right, Anna, let's start with your presentation. Yes, good afternoon, dear colleagues. Indeed, I am a teacher, school teacher. And it's my pleasure to present a project which was generated during the advanced program at the school. And I'm happy to say that this experiment turned out to be quite successful. From a tormentor to a teacher, which plays on the pun, which in the Russian language we have between the two words of teacher and tormentor, and because they're euphonic, and so we will be going into this analysis, and we asked the school children to write down the name of this project. So my school kids sent me the name of this project, step-by-step instruction from tormentor to a teacher. Yuri Petrovich Sinakosov, during the advanced school seminar, said that according to Levada Center surveys, the greatest fear of the contemporary Russians is a fear for our children, for the children.
Where do our kids spend most of their time? Every day. Children from 7 to 17. Where? It is at school, that's right. But is not the school the place where the child should feel comfortable, secure, where he should be surrounded by teachers, professionals who should ensure there's comfort, freedom, and happiness? Unfortunately, very often at our schools, we have a very different situation. Schools are a source of stress, tension, traumatizing situation, and even psychological violence, which, horrible as it sounds from teachers to against children. And as a teacher, I couldn't stay indifferent to this. So many of my compatriots are afraid for my children, for their children, for the children with whom I spend most of the time. So when we speak on a project, we usually discuss a certain question. What do we want to do, how we are going to do it, and why are we doing it? So the question is why, or what for? As I was tackling this question, I will immediately answer. I recently heard at a conference of the Council of Europe at Oslo that kick-started the campaign Freedom to Speak, safe to speak, free to speak, safe to learn. And they asked us, do you want to once again become a teenager? Please raise your hands. Those who want to once again be a teenager. A question was raised by the winner of the Global Teacher Awards, and many of you, as I got this question to an answer, Because for me, the school age, this teenage, had to do with this feeling of helplessness, with the need to obey, and with humiliation that I experienced at school. And as to the question, why do I need to listen and to speak and to work on psychological and school violence, I thought that I want to do all I can, at least in Yaroslavl, so that instead they should feel solidarity, so that humiliation and the need to obey should instead be replaced by an ability to take decisions. What do we want to do in this project? First, we must address the problem of psychological violence at school. Violence in Russia, as I think, is taboo. Nobody is keen to discuss about physical violence, nobody knows what it is. Yes, we've got a federal law on education which says that we should value and treasure our dignity of a child, his freedom for freedom of expression, but they're all empty words, which as a rule don't work. And when I thought, where's the problem of school violence? I asked this question to my 10th graders. Can you spank children? The question is, do you think you can spank children? But many of my kids said, yes, of course. But this never causing them any pain. This is just spank to punish, but sometimes they don't understand it. Of course you can spank it. And okay, you don't cause physical suffering to a child through your spanking, but let's think of it. What are the feelings that the child experiences as he gets his punishment? Many of them started to think about this. I'm sure they may have had their own personal experience and they heard words such as helplessness, humiliation, shame. And when we again discussed this question, can you really spank a child? Most of them said no. Although many parents would tell you why not. We were spanked and the child and we grew up and we are fine. Is everything really fine with us? Maybe we could have grown up if we were not spanked, or at least they wouldn't threaten us that they would spank us. There's threat of violence or possible violence. Can one really speak to a child in this there's imperative modes? Sasha, please correct me if I'm wrong about the terminology. Now, you have shut down your mouth. It works, right? And it works. It really does. It's so much simpler than, for example, sit next to your child, to your first grader, second grader, and be at the same level with him, meaning same eye level, and talk from these positions. So much simpler to say, shut your mouth, 1, 2, 3. This is the phrase I heard as I was on the jury at a competition which is known as pedagogical debut. You're laughing, but I was nearly as if I were hit by the electric current. Second graders discuss about autumn, how beautiful autumn is, and the teacher, who's probably my age, might be younger, but it's a very different generation. I very often refer to the Italia's study of 2013, which says that 85% of Russian teachers are women, and 50% out of these 85 are women over 50, between 50 and 60. This is a generation that grew up in Soviet education system, for whom, as it seems, this shut down your mouth is normal. This is a young woman saying, after she first would tell children, oh, look, children, look at the sweeties, at this beautiful auburn and tan and red and whatever leaves. It may sound comic, but it came as a shock. Or a teacher from Moscow school, so it's not typical of provinces, regrettably, only. And not in the School of Civic Education. Of course, I use the term school in the general context. Well, it's general school in the downtown Moscow. They can see somewhere farther away the domes of Christ the Savior. And when, after some lively discussion with kids, when she ran out of all arguments, she looked out in the window and said, "Children, the only thing that does not allow me to shout at you at this time are these domes in the window." And this is exactly the reality which our children live in. It's not you don't come to these classrooms and where you face this. Helpless, sometimes my 10 graders are higher than me, but taller than me, but, well, and this periodic accumulation is present in their life. But what do we want to do? Do we want to address this problem? We want to first collect the case studies and publish a book where we would collect the cases with the descriptions of similar situations which I just shared with you. And you could ask me, so what's the point of this all? Open up internet, Google violence at schools, and internet nowadays is full of this information about undignified behavior of my colleagues and peers. I don't want to discuss about physical violence towards kids. But what we think in my book is that it's clear from the name, from tormentor to teacher, step-by-step instruction. It will not just be a collection at worst that could be happen. It would be just a mirror for a physician, for a teacher, where he can look at and see through the child's eyes. The children ask me, "Anna Valerina, what do you mean? They are adults, they are teachers. Don't they understand? And don't you realize that they hurt us?" Probably they don't. I would like to believe that they don't understand what they do. And we should start an open conversation. Svetlana Ganoshkina from Civic Help said, "You must talk to people." And this conversation is not simple. I don't suppose that we all the physicians want to see a tormentor, but through this book, we can say that the pathway from the tormentor to, it's not a diagnosis you get for life and you cannot get rid out of it. So, a psychologist, a teacher, and I'll show you one of the cases. Just fourth grader, adored the school. He was doing his homework with so much pleasure, very much intelligent, very much woman, alone, single mother. She cherishes him, and then at one time the boy doesn't want to go to school, is capricious, refuses to do his homework, changes his behavior, and mother doesn't say anything. Maybe he doesn't want to upset her, whatever. Mother goes to school, and the teacher asks him, "What happened? What was the reason for this happening?" I put him to the back desk. "It's impossible. He laughs at me every class." I say, "So what do you mean?" Whatever I should say, he starts laughing. It's impossible to tolerate this. And now let him sit in the back desk. As the mother comes home, she has to get the second side, and she says, "What is it?" And that the boy just fell in love with a girl who's sitting in the next row, and from time to time, and disregarding the teacher who is saying something, he is just wants to flirt with her. It really is provoking some, and the teacher just probably, maybe there were some comments towards him and whatever, but the point is that he no longer could, during the class, he could no longer flirt with that girl, and it winked at her. And how distorted must be the perception of a grown-up person to think that the child should be thinking about you. We suggest you should look at this case. What is this situation about? And cases like this, we collect them in If you want to share it with me on Facebook, you can send it you can send an audio file or a text file. I'm sure that only an open discussion can help us remember that our teacher is a teacher